Hey guys, it's Joe with Architech Sports in Indian Trail, and today we are going to look at how we use our pelvis in sports. I get questions all the time from athletes that say, hey, my coach says I have to use my hips more, I have to use my pelvis more, and a lot of times athletes don't know what that means, and sometimes they come in here and they're like, how do we do this? So I thought we'd shed some light on that today, and I have Courtney, a novice figure skater, with us today to demo all the exercises so we can get some good positions and bad positions. So what we want to look at first, and you'll see this ball in my hand a lot in clinic when we're teaching pelvic rotation. So what we're looking at, and we'll turn sideways a little bit like this, okay, perfect, is we want to see how do we use our hips, okay? So if we sit our butt back, okay, where our hips are going into flexion, and when we stand, our hips are going into extension. So that's one plane of movement. That's called the sagittal plane. So when we go in hip flexion and extension, we're using our butt muscles. So in sport, that's a muscle we need to work. Sport doesn't just live in the sagittal plane. We add some rotation. So here's where we like to use that ball. So what now I want you to do is you're just going to push your right knee forward, okay? So when your right knee goes forward, your left butt goes backwards, okay? And what this is working on is trying to get her weight to shift to her right side and then to her left side. In sport, when we want to transition from our right leg to our left leg, we have to transfer our center of gravity, which happens right between our belly button and our pelvis. So being able to shift right butt back, left butt back, that's working in the transverse plane. And I want you to face the wall for me. And now we want to avoid moving in the frontal plane. This is where our problems happen. So if we can teach in any rotational sport, which is most of our sports, she's a figure skater, so she's going to learn to load by sitting into her right hip. She's going to push and jump up in the air, and she'll spin here. We want to avoid side to side. If we're a golfer, we want to rotate through. We don't want to shift. If we're a baseball player, we want to load and then shift. Okay, we want to rotate through around our hips by moving our pelvis. Our pelvis being where my hands are, her hip being the joint that's right below it. So if that pelvis can move on that femur, that's where most of our power is going to occur, and we're going to eliminate the torque in our spine and the stress on the outside, our glute medius tendons, as we perform our sport. Okay, now I thought we would go over some multiplanar exercises, starting with the sagittal plane, working two movements, flexion and extension, and then we'll move into the frontal plane to resist that movement, since we said that's important to resist, and then we'll combine it for a powerful exercise using the 3D strap. So this is a glute bridge. I'm going to slide over this way a little bit. We're going to put your shoulder blades over here. Okay, put your shoulder blades right on here, and then you're going to slide out this way. So anytime we're in an anti-gravity position, that's how we get that muscle to fire the best, okay? So usually with athletes, I start them out on the table, and then as they get a little bit more trained, we put them into more gravity challenging positions. So she can have a larger range of motion here. And again, Courtney, go ahead and lower your butt. Okay, so we're gonna do the right way and the wrong way to do things, okay? So before we do anything, we wanna make sure our ribs and our pelvis are near each other, okay? So as long as she's not arching her back, okay, which would be a bad position, and then we want her to tuck that butt up underneath and then bridge up into a straight line to where those ribs and pelvis stay close to each other, okay? So that should be a good finished position, a nice flat tabletop. Belly's pulled in tight. You feel your butt working, right? Feel your hamstrings working, okay? From the front, I'll check and make sure the feet are parallel, that the toes aren't turned out, that everything stays lined up. The knees aren't too far out or too in. We're lining them up with the hips, okay, and the pelvis. And then come on down. Tuck the butt, bridge up, and as these get easier, we can start loading, putting barbells, kettlebells, resistance straps to make that harder, to make those glutes work. So this would be a sagittal plane hip extension exercise. Again, stand up, and I want you to lift your left leg up as high as it goes, okay? And what we're gonna do is you wanna think of pushing through the ground. So we're gonna work on hip flexion on this leg. We want that leg to stay nice and underneath so you can use your hamstring and your hip flexor to work together to do that movement. Sometimes I see that leg too far out front, okay? I like to have that leg pulled up through here. It's a shorter lever arm. You can produce a little bit more force that way. And then we're gonna see if you can lift that knee above the level of your hip without making this knee bend, okay? So see if you can keep that right leg straight, push through the floor with your right foot, drive up, and you're gonna hold that for 5 seconds. Hold it there. Now let your hand go from the wall and see if you can hold that position, okay? What muscle do you feel working? You feel your quad here, right? Do you feel your muscle here working? Trying to push through the ground? Okay, so we wanna focus on that. So sometimes I'll cue them. I'll put a adjustable PVC pipe here to give them a target to try to hold that knee up here for 5 seconds and then come back down. Inhale deep, exhale belly tight, push through the ground with your right foot. See if you can get that right leg to straighten. That's it, you should feel your butt working now. We're gonna hold that. That looks good? Perfect. We'll go to the next exercise. We're gonna work in the frontal plane and trying to resist our pelvis from dropping, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have this angled 2 different ways so you can see it on the video. We're gonna do what we call a lateral step down. So I'm gonna have you put your left leg on the step. And really this is the first exercise where you're gonna be able to see pelvic rotation. And I'm gonna try to demo it in 2 positions. So again, stand up. All right. So whenever we're on one leg, that's different than when we're squatting on 2 legs. So when we're on 2 legs squatting, we try to drive our knees out to give bilateral gluteal activation. But when we're on one leg, if we did that, that means one leg's gonna be here and our pelvis is gonna be pointing this way, which is a recipe to make that knee roll in. So instead of having the inability to hold that knee out and the pelvis this way, the best way to do that is take your center of mass, where your belly button is, and you're gonna turn it towards your big toe on the left leg. So whatever leg you're standing on, you take that belly button and turn it towards that big toe. And that's gonna put your center of gravity right over where your balance point is. And you'll have this leg straight out, and coincidentally, that's your landing position, isn't it? So what we're gonna do then is now you're gonna sit your hips back and try to imagine a baby bird on the ground, tap that heel to the ground, and try to see if you can control that. A lot of times with dancers and figure skaters and a lot of other athletes that don't do well on one leg, their hips will open up and then you'll see that knee dive in, okay? So our focus is gonna be sitting our hips back into the leg we're standing on, which is our left leg. Sit that butt back and stand. And we'll see if we can do that 5 times, working up to 30 times to get that control of trying to prevent that knee from rolling inside the 3rd toe. That looks good. Now what it looks like from behind, so if we're coaching and we're trying to put mirrors in front of our athletes so they can see this, you'll put your foot and you'll face that way. Okay? What I will look at, this should be a good angle for it, is you want to see whatever leg they're standing on, that's the butt that should be sticking out. So go ahead and sit your hips back. You should see more of her left butt than her right butt in the picture. Okay? And I think we see that there. So Court, you're doing it good. Well done. I like it. So that's frontal plane control, unilateral weight shifting. Excellent. So now what we're going to work on is we're going to tie in sagittal plane training, frontal plane training, and multi-directional plane training, which is the most athletic of all of our movements. And as a figure skater, we're trying to get her to push through the ground and then create torque and momentum. In order to do that, we're going to load our hips, right? We're trying to get into our hips. Change our center of gravity. Belly button is going to get heavy onto that right side, and then we're going to push hard out of that. And so we got a cool tool that we use. It's called What's That Strap? And we're going to have her wind herself up into this to preload her tissue, and she's going to teach herself to explode out of that naturally by feeling heavier into that right side. So we can do this symmetrically, where we squat, and then asymmetrically where we're going to shift our weight to the right side, and we're going to use our hips, use our pelvis by preloading that tissue. And what we're going to try to avoid is preventing our pelvis from shifting out to the side. So we're going to feel that like we practiced with that ball. Right butt shifting back, torso, belly button loading right over the big toe. And that lets us know we're really heavy onto that right side, so we can fire through that just like a squat or jumping, pushing out of that, feeling the right butt do the work. So let's try 5 of these, and I want you to let everybody know where you feel it the most, okay? So again, wrap in here. So you're gonna keep wrapping. So this is gonna wrap her in preloader. We're gonna step out. I usually do pretty light resistance. You can use a band. We have a cable column set up. It's on like 40 pounds now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let her start with 2 feet on the ground, and we're gonna let her just feel the loading. So feel that weight shift back, and then get deep into that squat and hold that. What muscle do you feel stretching and loading right now?
My right butt.
Right butt, perfect. So we're gonna load that. And then what we'll do is you'll just straighten your right leg and you feel your pelvis turn to the left. And then load back into that, feel that 5 times. Perfect. Feel that. So this is great for figure skaters getting ready to jump, golfers on their backswing, getting ready to go through their follow through, pitchers getting ready to load and rotate their pelvis, tennis players on their serve, getting ready to transition, pick a sport, volleyball players, any rotational sport athlete, which is so many. Softball players, just pick one. What muscle do you feel working?
My right butt.
Right butt, perfect. So anytime your coach says, let me see you use your pelvis, I want you to use your hips better, okay? If we can apply these 4 simple movements, we should be able to feel it where?
Our butts.
Our butts. Our butts are part of our pelvis. So if you're feeling the exercise in your butt, then you're recruiting the muscles that surround your hips and pelvis. And with that, guys, I think we did what we needed to do. We recruited our hips. Awesome. Until next time, Architect Sports.